Okay, so as we'll see, Democrats lost their minds over all of this. They could not believe that Pete Hegseth was the nominee. So Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, he ripped into Hegseth saying, "You are unqualified." Now, again, all the Democrat qualifications in the world, they don't seem to matter. Because for Democrats, the qualification is not how you will actually run the Defense Department or whether your ideology on defense is correct. It's apparently whether you ran a big business beforehand or whether you spent 30 years climbing the ranks of the military by kissing enough ass. These are apparently the things that make you qualified to run the Department of Defense, as opposed to what you are going to do. Of course. So here is Senator Gary Peters getting very miffed, incredibly miffed, that Pete Hegseth is going to be Secretary of Defense.
Do you think that the way to raise the minimum standards of the people who serve us is to lower the standards for the Secretary of Defense? That we have someone who has never managed an organization more than 100 people is going to come in and manage this incredibly important organization and do it with a professionalism and has no experience that they can tell us that they have actually done that? I have real problems with that.
Wow. I mean, well, if he hasn't run a giant organization, then how can he possibly run the Department of Defense? Well, maybe by making it a smaller organization might be one answer. And then you have Senator Jack Reed, who dropped the laugh-out-loud funny line that we are a more lethal military thanks to diversity. I'm sorry, I don't see the correlation. It doesn't seem to me that if you were just recruiting a military from scratch, your first question would be, how many Black, Hispanic, Jewish, and Asian people are there in this military? That shouldn't be your first line of demarcation in terms of an effective fighting force. But according to Jack Reed, this is the thing that makes the American military deadly, is that we have more minority lesbians or something. Here is this asinine senator from Rhode Island.
Our military is more diverse than it has ever been, but more importantly, it is more lethal than it has ever been. This is not a coincidence. Mr. Hegseth, I hope you will explain why you believe such diversity is making the military weak and how you propose to undo that without undermining military leadership and harming readiness, recruitment, and retention.
Harming recruitment. We can't recruit or retain anyone right now. Everybody who's showing up to the office is too fat. It's really a massive problem. They have massive recruitment shortages. And Jack Reed's like, well, I mean, what are we going to do if we don't have enough overweight transgender people in the military? How are we going to solve our recruitment crisis without those people? Well, maybe the answer to solving the recruitment crisis is making it appear to be badass to be in the military. Every single member of the military I've ever met, and I've met many, many, many members of the military, they all joined up because they thought that it was an awesome thing to do. They all joined up because they wanted to be part of the defense of the country. And yes, because the vast majority of people who join the military are men. And there is a masculine energy to the military. This is just the way it works. Restoring that is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing. But, the Democratic objections continued. Senator Elise Slotkin of Michigan, she suggested that Hegseth is going to follow illegal orders given by President Trump. And Hegseth just wasn't even buying the premise.
What are you scared of? Did he do the right thing by apologizing?
I'm not scared of anything, Senator.
Then say yes or no. You can say no.
The laws and the Constitution.
Okay.
In any particular
Donald
scenario.
Trump asked for the active duty 82nd Airborne to be deployed during that same time. Secretary Esper has written that he convinced him against that decision. If Donald Trump asked you to use the 82nd Airborne in law enforcement roles in Washington, D.C., would you also convince him otherwise?
I'm not going to get ahead of conversations I would have with the president. However, there are laws and processes inside our Constitution that would be followed.
Again, that is the basic answer. How is he supposed to evaluate whether something's legal or not before the situation arises? But Mazie Hirono, who is legitimately the stupidest person in the Senate. I mean, Mazie Hirono, the senator from Hawaii, who is a full-scale moron. I mean, this lady, if she's got a triple-digit IQ, I would be absolutely astonished. So she suggested that Hegseth was going to shoot protesters. And there's a reason they couldn't lay a glove on Hegseth yesterday.
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
Would you
events,
carry
holding
out
a
an
riot
order to
shield on
shoot
behalf of my
protesters
country.
in the legs?
I saw 50
as
Secret
directed
Service agents
to
get injured by
Secretary Esper?
rioters trying to jump over the fence, set
Again,
the church on fire, and destroy
You know
a
what?
statue.
That sounds to me that you will
Chaos.
comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg.
You will shoot protest. What is she talking about? He says he's going to abide by the law, and then she refuses to hear his answer. But this is the way they work. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, we're all looking for a fresh start this time of year, from eating better to losing weight. We all have some bad habits to stop and some good ones to start. You can give your finances a huge fresh start. Make this the year you start to get out of debt and stop being crushed by it. And the first step to do that, contact PDS Debt for a personalized debt solution. If you're making payments every month on your debt, but the balances don't seem to be going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with 10 grand or more in eligible debt qualifies. There is no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. There's nothing worse than getting into debt. I have friends who have been in debt. It is absolutely brutal. PDS Debt is a great way to structure your life so you can get out of that debt. Make this the year you take control of your debt. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/Shapiro. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/Shapiro. pdsdebt.com/Shapiro. Don't let debt eat your year, eat your life. Instead, get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/Shapiro. That's pdsdebt.com/Shapiro. Mazie Hirono, by the way, then decided to go even further. She said, will you resign if you drink on the job? Okay, this is all based on these anonymous smears that Hegseth is a heavy drinker, despite the fact that everybody at Fox has said that that is not true, despite the fact that pretty much all of his former colleagues say that's not true. Here is Hirono claiming that Hegseth is a sloppy drunk.
You recently promised some of my Republican colleagues that you stopped drinking and won't drink if confirmed, correct?
Absolutely.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign
serving.
as Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made
you
this commitment
drink
on
the
behalf
job?
of the men and women I'm serving.
I'm not
because it's the
hearing-
most important deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my question, so I'm going to move on.
He literally answered the question. I don't even know what she's talking about. But again, this is how the Democrats decided to go after him. Same thing with Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona. He also tried to get Hegseth on the "you're a heavy drinker" routine.
On Memorial Day 2014, at a CVA event in Virginia, you needed to be carried out of the event for being intoxicated.
Senator, anonymous
True.
smears.
Just true or false? Very simple. Summer of 2014 in Cleveland, drunk in public with the CVA team.
Anonymous smears.
I'm just asking for true or false questions, true or false answers. An event in North Carolina, drunk in front of 3 young female staff members after you had instituted a no alcohol policy and then reversed it. True or false?
Anonymous smears.
And again, you actually have to evidence the smear in order for you to move forward with those accusations, but apparently not, according to the Democrats. Then Tim Kaine joined the fun, senator from Virginia and long forgotten vice presidential candidate for Hillary Clinton. He went after Hegseth for his extramarital affairs, which again, I'm sorry, you're the party of Bill Clinton, guys. You are. That's what you are. You're the party of Ted Kennedy. Like, give it a rest. Here's Tim Kaine.
I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged,
Hey,
fully
you-
investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime. That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is
Senator-
that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she
I'm
was,
glad
and
she's here.
you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
It was
no,
fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so
you've
grateful
you've
for the marriage
admitted-
I have to this
No,
amazing
you've
woman
admitted-
behind me.
Okay, that last line is the key. He's still married to that woman. And by the way, he's experienced conversion. He's become a very religious Christian. So Senator Mark Wayne Mullen eventually had enough of this, the senator from Oklahoma. And he had what I think is one of the great moments in modern Senate history, where he effectively stood up on his hind legs and he said, listen, all you drunken leches in the Senate, and there are a lot of them, okay, the amount of drinking that goes on in the Senate could provide the entire market for grain alcohol in the United States. There are so many drunks, so many cheaters on their wives in the Senate. It is not a place filled with virtuous men. It really is not. And Mark Wayne Mullen makes this point. He's like, so you're going after Hegseth for something that he's lived through and apologized for in a way that, by the way, Bill Clinton never did. Tim Kaine ripping into Hegseth. He ran with the wife of the person who is the biggest cheater as president, exposed before the American public, and the woman he ran with literally threatened alleged victims. I mean, that is who Tim Kaine ran. And then he sits there judging Pete Hegseth, who, again, has repented of the sin. Here's Mark Wayne Mullen going after his fellow senators.
And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No, but it's for show.
Correct. It's for show. But the show continued. Again, I don't know what Democrats thought they were doing here, but it absolutely backfired. It did not look good in any way, shape, or form. The Democrats continued. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, she tried to mock Hegseth for not knowing off the top of his head the countries in ASEAN, which is a compendium of 11 countries in Southeast Asia. And somehow this was supposed to be disqualifying, which again is unbelievably stupid. Because if somebody refers to that and you don't know, you ask your phone and it tells you in legitimately 0.0 seconds. Here's Tammy Duckworth going after Hegseth.
How many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations.
Okay, you literally put on the Supreme Court a woman who doesn't know what a woman is. I think we all know what a woman is. It might take a few of us, like a quick check of the internet to figure out which countries are in ASEAN. But that's the disqualifier? That one is the disqualifier? Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.